What's up, YouTube? This is Antithesis here to shake my fist at the void again. And I just wanted to talk about podcast bros and Trump, the podcast comedians, people like Andrew Schultz and what's that other asshole's name? The one that was supposed to go to Iran, to Riyadh. I'm sorry, not Iran, Saudi Arabia, to Riyadh, the Riyadh Comedy Festival. I can't remember his name, the big white guy. But anyways, some if you know his name, just put it in the comments. You know who I'm talking about. The guy he was supposed to go, and they offered him his letter, like they gave him down payment and everything, and then he came out and he made a joke on his podcast here in America about slavery in Saudi Arabia and how they have slaves, and he's willing to overlook it if they pay him enough money. And I guess somebody in Saudi Arabia in the royal family or somebody affiliated with the royal Saudi family saw it, and they rescinded his offer. So he was uninvited to the Riyadh Comedy Festival. So he was stuck in the unfortunate position of letting his audience know that he was morally compromised because he was willing to go in the first place to perform for the royal Saudi family. And then at the same time, also not even being able to go and benefiting from the money. So he got the worst of both worlds. He got to not get the money, and he outed himself as a heartless piece of shit that has no values and is a soulless grifter. But anyways, not to get stuck on one person. I wish I could remember his name. But anyways, he's one of the Rogan Sphere guys. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times and all that good stuff. But anyways, that's not the point. The point of this is that all these podcast bros, especially like Andrew Schultz. I saw Andrew Schultz had Zohran Mamdani on his show on the Flagrant podcast a couple days ago, I think. And Zohran knocked it out of the park. Out of the park, of course he did, because he's great at being a politician. He's good at what he does, and he stands for something. He actually has opinions and beliefs, and he has things that he suggests that he thinks will make the world a better place. So of course he's going to do great in an interview or a podcast situation, because podcasts are all about being real. It's about unfiltered, off the top of the head entertainment, just things you're saying to entertain the audience, cool, interesting conversations. And what's cooler or more interesting than genuine ways that we can make the world a better place? Since Zohran Mamdani has those ideas, of course he did well. But it made me think a little bit about Andrew Schultz, because the way he reacted to Zohran Mamdani. And he didn't react in a negative way. He reacted in a pretty positive way. It was pretty positive, and it was pretty, inquisitive, which is good. But my question is, there's a point where Zohran Mamdani talks about how he wants to freeze rent, and he wants to, I forget what the other thing is. It's another specific policy we're talking about. But anyways, Andrew Schultz essentially asks him, how are you going to do that? There are Democrats in the party, in the Democratic establishment, that are going to fight against you. And they are, right? Chuck Schumer, I talked in my last video, I think it was my last one, about how Chuck Schumer has still not endorsed Zohran Mamdani, and neither has Hakeem Jeffries, because they're soulless suits that don't actually believe in anything and don't really represent us. They're middle management between us and the billionaires. But anyways, he was talking about, Andrew Schultz was making the point that these people, like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, and I think her name is Alyssa Slotkin, and all these other people are going to obstruct Zohran Mamdani from being able to do what he wants to do, to get all the stuff he wants to get done. And I don't necessarily have a problem with the question. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad question. I guess my issue is, why didn't you ask, Trump that? You had Trump on there just lying, just spewing bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, and you just swallowed it. You just swallowed it like it was nothing. You didn't even try. You didn't even make an attempt to try and fact check him or ask him, hey, how are you going to do this? Those words never came out of your fucking mouth. You didn't care. You were wholly unbothered. But now, since you realize, oh, if I'm going to have a politician on my show, I need to make sure I do it in a semi-safe way so I don't make myself look like a fucking idiot and endorse a candidate that's going to get in there and start stripping people of their civil liberties and civil rights. Now, because you've had that realization, now all of a sudden you want to ask questions like, well, how are you going to do that? It's a little late for that, but whatever, But I just wanted to make it clear, I will never, ever in my life trust any of these comedians on anything they have to say about politics ever. Not that I was before, right? I mean, I'm pretty reserved about who I get information from and who I take seriously in regards to politics. But I definitely won't be doing it now. And I would hope lots of people are not. I hope so. But I mean, as you can see, what it looks like is happening is that they're trying to scrub that Trump off of them. They're trying to scrub that pro-Trumpness off of them so that they can still have regular careers and actually have fans that love them, instead of people in their comments bitching at them for selling out and for humanizing a monstrous candidate, but somehow I don't really think that it's going to work. I genuinely don't think so. I think it's too late. I think you've anchored yourself too closely to Trump and his agenda. You've made it seem too good. You've done too much carrying water to dump it out right now. It's just not possible. But I'm not opposed to them trying. I'm cool with them trying. I think they'll fail, and that's a good thing because I don't think they should ever be taken seriously again because they had an opportunity to actually steer the country in a direction that was less harmful, and they chose to instead prioritize, excuse me, they chose to instead prioritize publicity and money and, riding that Trump MAGA wave, but like the soulless fucking grifters that they are. But Tim Dillon, that's the name of that other comedian, that fat fuck. Tim Dillon is the one that got invited and then got uninvited because he made some comments about the Saudi Arabian royal family and Saudi Arabia in general and slavery and all that stuff. I could not remember his name again, but it was Tim Dillon. But anyways, but yeah, as I was watching this Zohran Mamdani appearance on the Flagrant podcast, I just could not shake the feeling of, bro, why is it so fucking one-sided? Why is it when someone goes in there and says, we're going to do tax breaks for everyone, we're going to get rid of all the illegals. Why is it when Trump said he was going to get rid of all the illegals, none of you said, how are you going to do that? None of you bothered to ask, well, how are you going to do that? Nobody stopped to consider the logistics of trying to remove tens of millions of people, not to mention having to find them in the first place. No one bothered. No one said that. It never occurred to anybody because they never thought about anything Trump said for more than like a fucking second. Because the point wasn't to actually pry into his political beliefs and see what he was actually going to do. The point was to kiss his ass and suck his dick and give him a hot stone massage, as Kyle Kalinske says, and try and get in good with the MAGA crowd so you can continue to sow his grift. Because you thought he was going to get in office and do mostly what he did the first term, which was nothing, and just hang out and fail at trying to do all of the stupid, harmful shit he was trying to do in the first term. Unfortunately for you, that's not the case because he was able to consolidate a lot of power between now and then, and you underestimated how strong he would be at getting what he wanted done because he was prioritizing putting people in his administration that are just yes men. They don't care. They don't care if they don't know anything about the position they're in. They don't give a fuck if Christine Holm doesn't know anything about Homeland Security. They don't care if, what's the fucking lemur's name? Kash Patel knows anything about law enforcement at all whatsoever. They don't care. These things are secondary. The priority is that they're a Trump bootlicker. They're not going to try and stop him. They don't care how stupid it looks. They don't care how retarded it makes them seem. They don't care, right? So you hitched yourself to a wagon that was going over the side of a fucking cliff, and I don't know that you can unhitch yourself, unfortunately for you. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You should have been, all that energy you had. Well, how you gonna, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. That's the downside to doing these videos where I just fucking ramble at the camera and shake my fist at the void. And sometimes I lose track of where I was. But anyways, back to the point I was making. Yeah, why is it that Trump gets to go in there and say he's going to deport all the illegals and everybody just nods their, that'll be based. Why is it that happens? But then when Zohran Mamdani goes in there and says we're going to freeze the rent to try to make housing affordable in New York City, everyone's, well, how are you going to do that? The Democrats, the establishment are going to try to stop you. How are you going to get anything done? How are you going to do that? Newsflash, dumbass. It's your job as a comedian, if you're going to involve yourself in politics. Part of your job is to establish the social climate necessary so that Zohran Mamdani can do the things he wants to do. The Democratic establishment can stand in his way, but it can't just stop him if he has enough institutional power. And how you get that institutional power is through playing politics, through scaring people into supporting you, just like Donald Trump is doing to the Republicans. And Obama could have done when he had the mandate that he had in 2012. When Obama got elected, everybody loved Obama. He had everybody. The mandate he had was enormous. He could have did exactly what Trump is doing right now, and he could have gone to every Democrat in the House and in the Senate and said, hey, support this bill for universal health care. Otherwise, I'm going to campaign against you in your primary. I'm sorry, not your primary, in your election campaign. Yeah, in your primary, in your election campaign for your seat. I'm going to make sure that your opponent in the primary beats you and you lose, and that's the end of your career. And then they would have had no choice. People like Joe Manchin. What was that other? There was one other person. I can't remember her name. Joe Manchin is the first one that comes to mind, but there's one other person who was a senator who was always a Democrat in name only, just a dino. They voted with, I think it was, I'm going to mess up, so I'm not going to try because I don't want to say the wrong name and then be spreading misinformation. But anyways, He could have gone to all the Democrats and forced them to work with him and accomplish his agenda. He could have done that, but he was weak because all he cared about was the liberalist ideas that he got elected by. The idea of, I don't have to actually do anything. All I have to do is convince people that I want to do something. That's it. That's all I have to do. Well, unfortunately, we're finding out what happens now when the person who's doing that actually wants to do things. That's just the unfortunate truth. So yeah, the podcast bros going over the cliff with Donald Trump, and good fucking riddance, if you ask me personally. They've done nothing but harm. They look like fucking retards the entire time that they're doing it. Yeah, get rid of the illegal. Yeah. Good riddance. I'm glad that they're going to be at least hitched to this fucking wagon. I don't know if it's going to ruin their careers necessarily. It doesn't seem to have had that much of an effect, I guess. But it certainly seems to be affecting the viewers. They're saying things to them. They're commenting and being voicing their frustration with them in their comments and stuff. So I guess that's all we can ask. But yeah, Andrew Shultz, if you want to wipe that Trump stench off of you, your job is to continue this path of expanding and exploring ideas that actually help people. I don't give a fuck if they're socialist. I don't care. I'm a socialist. I don't give a shit if they're socialist. They don't have to be socialist ideas. It can be something simple. It can be as simple as raising the minimum wage. That's not fucking socialist, but it should be happening, right? We can agree on that, can't we, Andrew Schultz? Can't we agree on that? If not, then you may as well stay hitched to Trump, because piss off, as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, I just wanted to get on here and blow off some steam at the podcast comedian bros. I know I only really mentioned Andrew Schultz and Tim Dillon, but to be quite honest with you, those are the only two that really fucking matter. And then there's Joe Rogan, the fucking idiot egg himself. But he doesn't really seem interested in dislodging himself from underneath Trump's nutsack. He seems quite comfortable where he is. So I'm not really too concerned about shitting on Rogan. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time to shit on Rogan because he looks like an egg. He's a retard, and there's not really much there in terms of political savvy or know-how. He could just kind of be led around by the nose like a dumbass. So I'm not really too concerned with him. But Andrew Schultz and Tim Dillon, I don't know. They seem like they are at least vulnerable to the public. And that's the difference. Joe Rogan is so fucking wealthy that I think he's just kind of insulated from what the public thinks of him. But Tim Dillon and Andrew Schultz, I don't think they are. I don't think they're at that level yet. They are wealthy, but I don't think they're wealthy enough to be insulated from public opinion of themselves. I think their image still matters as far as their career is concerned so far. But anyways, that's the whole video. I just wanted to get on here and bitch for, what's it been, almost 13 minutes about the podcast bros and how their attempts at trying to wash Trump off of them and get that Trump dick out of their mouths is amusing to me, and I hope it fails. I hope they crash and burn. To be quite honest, there needs to be consequences for going on there if you have a platform and saying retarded shit that hurts people. There needs to be consequences for that. And if the only consequences in the world that I live in right now are that you lose a few thousand subscribers, okay, fair enough, I guess. I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get against these assholes. But anyways, thanks for watching, YouTube, and I'll see you next time that I feel the need to shake my fist at the void again.